So you've asked me about what horror films I rewatch every Halloween. It's a tough question because I rewatch films all the time and I don't have a particular Halloween selection, though obviously I do watch a lot of horror films, particularly around Halloween. I like to watch a few horror films that I haven't seen around Halloween too, in the hopes that I'll be surprised by something great. Now, there are so many great horror films out there. I'm not sure I'll ever get to see them all, but that's partially my own fault because I do enjoy rewatching old movies, and often I'll end up reaching for a classic rather than watching something new. But back to the question. Jacob's Ladder. I love this movie. I've always found the thought of losing your mind particularly horrific. So I'm drawn to movies where the protagonist knows something or can see something, but no one else can see it. And you're always wondering if they're crazy or if it's all in their head. I love the atmosphere of Jacob's Ladder. There's some standout horror scenes like the scenes with the violently shaking heads or the dancing scene at the party with Jezzy and the demon, and the scene where Jacob is strapped to a gurney being wheeled down that horrific corridor. But the quiet scenes are also great in that movie. Tim Robbins plays Jacob as an everyday man, a very sympathetic character, and he creates that human connection that's essential to the success of a horror movie. I'm not sure how many times I've rewatched it, but it's on my Halloween list. Also on my Halloween list is the Amityville Horror. I used to read a lot of horror novels all the time as a child, and I found the Amityville Horror novel particularly scary. I saw the film when I was quite young and it left an impression on me. That opening scene set the tone of the movie, like it's not going to hold back. It felt very real to me at the time, and I think that created a connection, which means I end up watching this movie every Halloween. I'm also a fan of supernatural movies, particularly ones with the basis of some form of religion, like Rosemary's Baby or The Omen or The Prince of Darkness. I mean, any of them could have been on this list, but Amityville is the one I tend to watch most of out of those at Halloween. I'm talking the original Amityville Horror now, the 1979 movie. In the Mouth of Madness is one of my favourite Carpenter films. I could have gone for The Thing or The Fog here too. I rewatch those movies often, but not so much at Halloween. I do revisit Sutter Kane a lot at Halloween, and I'm never disappointed. Like I said, I love supernatural horror, and I'm going mad horror, and In the Mouth of Madness is both of those things. I've borrowed from it in my own film Beyond the Woods, where I pay homage to the scene where Trent attempts to leave Hobbs End but ends up back there every time. And Sam Neill is always brilliant, of course. I mean, he's great in Event Horizon, another favourite of mine, but I couldn't see anyone else in the role of John Trent. Sleepy Hollow is also one that I'm throwing in. It's a film that I watch at Halloween too. It's kind of fun Halloween movie, and I always enjoy watching it. I love Burton's movies, and I love the sets and the characters that he and his cast create in this movie. It's a beautiful looking film too, but it retains like a creepy atmosphere from start to finish. It's playful yet bloody, with a cool detective story and characters we care about, and a great score too. And more than that, it exists in its own world and takes us out of ours for a couple of hours so as we can live in this weird dreamscape, which is the sign of a great horror and a great movie actually. And choosing a final film is always the toughest thing to do. I have a list here that I wrote out when you asked me to do this video, and I'm leaving out a lot of great films. But I'm going to go with Alien because I love sci-fi horror, and I tend to watch at least one of these types of horror films every Halloween. And I'm going to watch Alien again this Halloween, so it makes sense. It's a film that shows the value of suspense, a film that every horror filmmaker should know inside out. I mean, it looks amazing, the cast are amazing, but the tension and scares come from the superb build-up. We don't see the alien much at all, but we know it's there and they know it's there, and that's a great way to create a horror movie. I suppose the same thing that Spielberg did in Jaws. It's just one of those things that's kind of worth knowing that for any of us, particularly if you're working in the independent field and you don't have huge budgets, that you don't necessarily need huge budgets. The less you see, the more impact it makes, or that it can make. So that's it. I suppose the selection that came to mind when you asked me to do this video. I could, like all of us, have so many more horror films in there, and I know I'm going to watch more than those 5, but those 5 tend to crop up year on year. And I know that there's some in there that are more kind of fun films, I suppose, than horror movies. But they're still Halloween movies, you know, that like Sleepy Hollow, for example. Not a terrifying movie, but it's got that Halloween atmosphere, and Amityville too, you know, that house, that iconic house. You just think of Halloween every time you see it. So yeah, there's my list.